Let me guess, you're the one that holds everything together, the one who always shows up, the one who friends turn to in a crisis, and the one your family rely on to be there. But let me ask you this, who's there for you? You didn't become the strong one because you wanted to, but because you had no choice. And now, the stronger you seem, the less anyone checks in. Because you've trained everyone to think that you're fine, when actually on the inside you feel numb, angry and resentful. In this video, I'm going to share what being the strong one actually costs and how you can stop carrying the weight of what was never yours to begin with. No one is born the strong one. It's not a personality trait. It's a survival mechanism that you learn in childhood. And it usually happens in families where the caregivers are either absent, volatile or unpredictable, or emotionally unavailable or emotionally immature. And the most empathetic child in that family, the most attuned child, will unconsciously step in to stabilize the family system. And that child becomes the container for all the unprocessed grief, anger, shame and fear that others in the family either cannot or will not face. So that child becomes the infrastructure of the family. They learn to read the room. They learn to sense everything that goes unspoken. And in doing so, they absorb any tension between their parents or other family members, and they will often step in to protect other siblings when things go wrong. Their body learns to scan for danger before it actually happens. So they're always on high alert. And over time, they become wired for hypervigilance, which means they're basically braced for any emotional impact. This is a way of surviving in an environment that doesn't meet your needs as a child. And this is the environment that I grew up in. From about the age of 4, I sensed this underlying tension in my family. And I felt that it was my duty to do whatever I could to try and keep my parents and my older sister happy, to try and avert any crisis that might happen. So I would do whatever I could to help around the house, doing chores. I would try and make them laugh to ease any pressure and just do whatever I could to keep the peace. I took on this good girl role. So I would, bring home glowing school reports and just be this child who didn't cause a fuss, didn't get into trouble, and just molded myself to whatever the given situation needed to make it go as smooth as possible. And then when there's this dynamic in the family, with every act of caretaking or good performance that the child does, they receive just enough validation and praise from the caregivers, which reinforces the loop. So they learn that love is transactional and that they will get it in return for doing well, for behaving well, for doing something good. And this means that over time, their sense of self-worth becomes attached to their usefulness and their performance. So what starts out as a survival mechanism actually becomes part of their identity. And the child becomes praised for their maturity and resilience and wisdom beyond their years. But the thing is, that is actually emotional parentification. So that basically means they're treated like an adult, but in a child's body. Nobody notices the loneliness that that child is feeling. And the child, they learn to suppress how they're really feeling, because when they've been emotional in the past, when they've been vulnerable, they didn't get the care that they need. So they learn to hide that part of them. And this is where the disconnection from self begins. I remember when I was upset as a child, I would be very careful not to cry in front of my dad, because if mum saw I was upset, she would obviously want to, come round and give me a cuddle, but somehow that would trigger my father. And especially if we were, in a family setting or having dinner around grandma's, we couldn't be upset around the table because I knew as a child that was an embarrassment to him. And as I grew older, I learned that he saw that as a reflection of his parenting. And if other members of the family saw us upset, we would be in trouble when we got home. So I learned to hide that part of me. Carl Jung says that in this family dynamic, the attuned child who is carrying the most emotional weight is least likely to receive the emotional care that they need. And the psyche will do whatever it needs to survive, which includes splitting off parts of the self. Now, as this child grows up, they carry this pattern through to every area of their lives. And they become the friend that everyone turns to in a crisis. I remember it didn't matter what was going on with me. When my friends were in trouble or needed someone to listen, I was there no matter what. They would ring me up and be like, you know, they've split up with their partner or they're not getting on with their parents right now. Can we meet for a coffee? Can I come round? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. It didn't matter what was going on with me at the time or how stressed I was. I learned to put that to one side and I would be there and I would listen intently to what was going on and give my everything to try and help them, to try and give them a solution or give them, food for thought that they could go home and try and work through whatever the issue was. The strong one becomes the caretaker. They become the overachiever. And they become the person who holds a family together, even though they might not even live at home anymore. They'll be the person that all the siblings call as a kind of central point of contact. We end up overperforming, overfunctioning, and overgiving, doing more and fixing more than is ours to sort. And when others don't reciprocate, we don't complain, we just internalize it. So all the time, we bury our true feelings under this burden of duty and responsibility to everybody else. And we give off this calm exterior, but on the inside, we feel like we're falling apart. And we don't ask anyone for help because being vulnerable feels unsafe. It reminds us of our childhood where emotion was seen as a weakness. So what was praised in childhood as good performance actually turns into burnout in adulthood. And we're fueled by the fear of letting people down and the fear of being seen as selfish and the fear of having to face our own pain. You end up feeling exhausted, but you can't sit still. You feel resentful, but you can't say no to people. And you feel lonely, like nobody knows what's going on with you, and yet you still show up for everyone. Because without this role as being the strong one, you don't know who you are. It's all you've known since being a child, and it becomes wired into your identity. So what started as a coping mechanism is now just your personality. It's what people know you for. I kept up this role for so many years, being there for everybody, fixing things, sorting things, being the good listener, being the good friend. And the thing is, I took pride in it. I wanted to be that person that was there for people. I wanted to be the one that they could rely on to always be there and show up when they needed me. I thought I was being a good person. I thought I was being a good daughter. Until I burnt out. And I realised, actually, who's been there for me? I realised I hadn't been seen, appreciated or supported in as long as I could remember. No one was there for me, but the thing is, I trained them not to be. Because when you say you're fine so many times, and you gloss over things and you divert the subject, you actually start to believe it yourself. So you stop checking in with yourself and you disconnect from yourself. I remember by the time I was 30, I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what my needs were. I didn't know what I wanted with regards to anything, let alone what I wanted to do with my life. But that's because I'd never asked myself these things. I'd always just gone along with what other people wanted. When I used to go on holiday with my, girlfriends at the time, if we were deciding on which restaurant to go to or which club to go to, I would never be the one to pick or say what I wanted. I would just always go along with the strongest character in the group to kind of keep the peace. And again, I would do it in a way where if I could sense that others perhaps wanted different things, I would be the mediator to kind of absorb any tension that was going on between other people. And I did it because I thought that was easier. Again, I thought I was being the good friend, but it got to the point where I literally didn't even know who I was. And over time, I started to feel angry and resentful and discontent. It was like this grief for not having a childhood, for growing up too fast, for not being able to just be like the other kids and have no responsibility. When I was at uni, my friend's mum had come to stay with us for a few days. And when she left, my friend came up to me and said, "Do you know, my mum said you're a lovely girl, but you've got a real sadness to you." And I remember thinking, what do you mean? But actually, later on that day, I thought to myself, do you know what? That's the first time that someone has really seen me. I felt like she'd seen through this mask that I put up for everyone, and she'd seen through to the real me, and it felt uncomfortable, and I felt like I'd been exposed. But at the same time, I kind of felt like the smallest bit of the burden had been lifted for the first time in my life. As we get older, these feelings become stronger, so we learn to isolate more and more so that people don't see the real us. It's a way of protecting ourselves, because as a child, when we were on our own, we weren't around unpredictable or unpleasant situations. So it becomes this familiar way of feeling safe. But the thing is, at the same time, we long for proper connection because we feel disconnected from people. So it's like this paradox. We want connection with people, yet when someone gets too close, we feel exposed. And this is the cost we pay for being the strong one. Burnout, resentment, emotional suppression, self-abandonment, and loss of identity. Don't wait until you hit rock bottom to do something about it. Start to notice what's happening now. Maybe you've got anxiety, exhaustion, both physical and emotional. Maybe you feel angry or resentful or just numb. That is your brain and body's way of telling you it's time to stop. And deep down, you probably fear that if you do stop, then people are going to desert you. But actually, that's the same fear that is keeping you trapped. True strength isn't measured by the amount that you do and carry for everybody else, but by the courage it takes to put all of that down and start speaking up about your own needs without apologising. Healing can only happen when we start to integrate all of the parts of ourselves that we abandoned, when we learn to reconnect and love that inner child that grew up too fast and took on too much. The first step to healing is acknowledging the emotional, mental, and physical toll that this has taken. And it's not about blaming other people or yourself, but seeing the reality for what it is. And that is, being the strong one is not a gift, but a trauma response that you learn very early on, and it's not who you really are. Take some time to sit down and trace the root of your emotional suppression. Ask yourself, where did I learn that my needs weren't welcome? Who punished or dismissed you when your feelings were inconvenient? Write it down and make it real. And give yourself permission to feel all the emotions that might come up. Emotions you've buried, like anger or sadness or loneliness. Acknowledge them and feel them. And don't judge yourself, because you're allowed to feel whatever you feel. And learn to experiment with setting boundaries. You need to learn to say no to protect your energy. Boundaries are essential to your well-being and they create better relationships. They're not selfish, although it might feel like that if you're not used to setting them. Start by saying no to something that you might do for someone on a regular basis out of obligation or habit or guilt. And when you say no, notice the discomfort that comes up. That discomfort is your body detoxing from a lifetime of people pleasing. It's your body's way of showing you that actually you've chosen you for once. And practice being vulnerable with someone that you trust. Practice opening up. Just choose one friend that you feel safe around and tell them about what's going on with you, your needs or your struggles. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to offload. Just be honest and tell it like it is and let them witness your truth. Being vulnerable builds connection and releases isolation. And learn to be your own best friend. Make regular space for rest, for joy, for things that nourish you emotionally, physically and spiritually. Reconnect with your passions and your dreams and your desires and everything that you lost touch with because you've been worried about everybody else. Do something that lights you up and do it because you want to and not because you have to. And remember to celebrate yourself for every step that you take towards your own peace and your own freedom. When you've lived in survival mode all your life, you stop noticing it. You don't realise your body's signals because you stay busy all the time to try and avoid how you're feeling. So dysregulation becomes your default. This is why you feel emotionally drained all the time, because it's just become your norm. But you can change it. Let people care for you, because the people who love you most don't need you to be invincible. They just need you to be you. You don't need to prove your worth to receive love, because your worth is not tied to your usefulness or your performance or how much emotional baggage you carry for other people. You have been the strong one long enough. Now it's time to be real. If you were the strong one in your family, then let me know in the comments below and let me know where are you at with things now. And if you found this video useful, please do give it a like and I'll see you in the next one.